There we go. Good morning. The August 7, 2019 meeting of the Board of Estimates is now called to order. In the interest of promoting the order and efficiency of these hearings, persons who are disruptive to the hearing will be asked to leave the hearing room. Meetings of the Board of Estimates are open to the public for the duration of the meeting. The hearing room must be vacated at the conclusion of the meeting. Failure to comply may result in a charge of trespassing. Madam Deputy Comptroller, are there any corrections, additions, or deferrals on the agenda?
Good morning. For today's agenda, there were no protests received by the board. We have one item that's being deferred, and that's pages 18 to 21 for 1 week. And for pages 67 and 68, item number 12, that item is being withdrawn. I'd like to announce that in the absence of Mr. Andre Davis, City Solicitor, Ms. Dana P. Moore, Deputy City Solicitor, will sit and act on his behalf today. We have the following extensions to report. For the Honorable Mayor Young, he will abstain on pages 62 to 63, item number 5. For the Honorable President Scott, he will abstain on pages 62 to 63, item number 5. The Honorable Comptroller Pratt will abstain on page 57 to 58, item 12B only, which is J.F. Fisher, Inc. We have two items that are on the non-routine agenda, and those are page 59, item number 1, and page 59, item number 2. Both items are audits. Mr. President and members of the board, that is the one deferral as well as the withdrawal and the abstentions that have been reported thus far today. Thank you.
Thank you. I would direct the board members' attention to the memorandum from my office dated August 5th, 2019, identifying matters to be considered as routine agenda items together with any corrections, additions that have been noted by the Deputy Comptroller. I will entertain a motion to approve all the items contained on the routine agenda.
Mr. President, I move approval of all of the items on the routine agenda.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion carries. The routine agenda items have been adopted. The first item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 59, Department of Audits, Item 1, Mayor's Office of Human Services, Biennial Financial Audit, fiscal years ended June 30th, 2018 and 2017. Will the parties please come forward?
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, Madam Comptroller, and board members. My name is Josh Pash. I am the City Auditor. I am here to present the Mayor's Office of Human Services Biennial Financial Audit for the fiscal years ended June 30th, 2018 and 2017. The Department of Audits has issued a qualified opinion. The basis of that opinion is finding 1, which is the federal funded Head Start and Continuum of Care grant programs reported cash balances of $20 million and $18 million, respectively, for fiscal year 2018. The state-funded community centers grant program reported a cash balance of $6.9 million, and these are grant programs that are administered on an expenditure reimbursement basis, so they shouldn't have significant cash there. Those balances are significantly overstated. Finding 2 was a significant deficiency, which is a repeat finding from a 2017 management comment issued by the Department of Audits, and it is regarding service organization control reports. Specifically, the agency used a number of softwares provided by third parties and did not obtain an external report on the security of the information contained in those systems. A SOC, or Service Organization Control Report, is a report which is provided by a third-party IT vendor. So ADP would be providing us external services, and in order for us to gain comfort that their data is secure, accurate, that ADP or the other vendor would provide an audit of that system. And as our users, as us being a user of that system, we would like to obtain that report to ensure that they have the proper controls over it. And MOHS has not obtained those reports, and that is our second finding.
Good morning, President Scott, Mayor Young, Comptroller Pratt, honorable members of the board. I'm Henry Raymond, Director of Finance. We acknowledge receipt of the biennial audit for the Mayor's Office of Human Services conducted by the Department of Audits. We concur with the finding related to grant cash balances at June 30, 2018. The Finance Department continues to adjust grant accounts and has made significant progress as evidenced by the unmodified opinions on the 2016, 2017, and 2018 comprehensive annual financial reports. We recognize more work needs to be done. We will adjust these balances after confirmation is received that the grantors are due no funds. Additionally, I'd like to state that the Grants Management Office is fully established, has issued administrative policies regarding grants management. We expect that these guidelines should help agencies avoid these types of issues as we move forward. And finally, this board approved of an enterprise resource planning contract with 2 vendors, Workday and Sierra Cedar, for essentially new grant accounting system, as well as general ledger, payroll system, et cetera. The point is that this new product, this new ERP platform, will be of significant assistance to agencies that have grant funds. The software that we selected is specifically designed and geared for governments and the management of grant funds. So we think as we move forward, as we implement the new system, this will be a tremendous aid to agencies in properly managing their grants and avoiding the types of issues that are presently occurring. Thank you. Yeah, finding two.
Good morning, President Scott, Mayor Young, Comptroller Pratt, and the rest of the board. I'm here to address finding number 2. I'm Terry Hickey, the former head of the Mayor's Office of Human Services. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge from the auditor's report how seriously we take the imposition of fiscal controls and also the protection of personally identifying information in any of the systems in which we use to serve clients. We acknowledge that obtaining the annual SOC reports from applicable software vendors, as noted by the auditors, is an important element in our overall risk management work. However, I do want to briefly clarify a couple things for the record. In this particular audit, the SOC reports that were applicable to Baltimore Head Start were indeed performed by the appropriate copies were requested and provided to the auditor, not requested in advance. So we see that as a procedural issue that we've cured by putting on the executive director's calendar the requesting of those SOC reports prior to the visit to the auditors. But I want to emphasize that they were done and they were provided. Secondly, the Homeless Services Program has made it a practice in the past to request SOC reports and did so most recently in FY 2016. In this particular situation, the sale of the vendor of our software to another company, we were told very recently that the SOC reports were not available. We have continued to demand those and will move forward making sure those are available in future years, or we'll have to consider moving to another vendor for this. But we believe we've addressed both of these issues.
Thank you. Questions? So noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
The second item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 59, Department of Artists, Item 2, Special Audit Report Associated Black Charities, Inc., January 31st, 2018 through April 30th, 2019. Will the parties please come forward?
Good morning, President Scott, Mayor Young, Madam Comptroller Pratt, and board members. I am here to present the special audit of Baltimore City Children and Youth Fund administered by and through the Associated Black Charities. The Department of Audits has one finding and 3 recommendations for improvement. The first finding cites inconsistent documentation with regards to the grantee selection. Specifically, when grantees ranked lower than other candidates in the original ranking, there wasn't inconsistent documentation to support it. We understand that ABC disagrees with this finding, citing additional factors taken into account in the awarding process. In some of these cases, we were provided documentation of these additional factors, but in 7 of the 19 such cases, we could not find any documentation or notes to support the selection of the lower scored grantees. In essence, the documentation was inconsistent, and our recommendation is that they tighten it up and make it universal across the board. The first opportunity for improvement was the MOU required that ABC or its designee provide a site visit of all grantees within 12 months to evaluate performance and compliance. Our audit scope only included 9 of those 12 months, and during those 9 months, we did not see any site visits performed by ABC. Now, as the MOU requires only within the first 12 months, this is not an audit finding because it is not a compliance issue. However, it is a recommendation for improvement because the Office of Audits found and believes that waiting until the end of the 12 months to do a site visit is a risk of not capturing issues that might be going on with the grantee and their program. ABC requested that we consider technical assistance, also known as TA's, involvement with the grantees as monitoring and place of the site visits. We did not consider these for the following reasons. Number 1, only level 1 grantees are required to have technical assistance. There was 3 levels. Level 1 was grantees issued between $5,000 and $20,000 grant. Level 2 were grantees issued between $21,000 and $250,000, and level 3 was $251,000 to $500,000. So even though other grantees may have been offered technical assistance, not all grantees received it, and therefore we did not consider it as a monitoring. The second point is that the technical assistance was more involved with meeting the goals to provide program and reporting, not the program itself. In other words, it was to help the grantee have administrative functions and get them up to speed in that. Now, we realized that part of the program was to build capacity to provide youth funding, youth programs, and we agree with that. However, there is also an aspect that the City of Baltimore wants to make sure that the youth programs are actually delivering services to the youth, and we did not see that as being taken care of through the TA program. The third point is our position is that the function of monitoring, which was the site visit, should be independent of the function that helps build cooperation. So the technical assistants who were there to help the grantees build up the functionality and the capacity to provide services do not make a good fit for the monitoring of those services being offered. Opportunity for improvement number 2. As of April 30th, 2019, which was our 9th-month period of audit ending, 5 grantees that were selected as grantees in August of 2018 with grantee amounts of $263,000 had not met the grant requirements and as such had not been issued funds. Considering the objective of the program and that the award letter states that not meeting the award requirements could lead to rescinding the award, we see this as an opportunity for improvement and recommend that procedures be put in place to evaluate and, if necessary, rescind the award so that the money can be used to provide services, as the goal of the program is to provide services for the youth. At any rate, whatever ABC decides, that they should have a documented reason of sticking with the grantee, whether they took a long time to be able to meet the requirements of the grant or moving forward. Opportunity for improvement 3. The program was designed to distribute funds in either 2 or 3 payments. The basis of this was apparent to us as we didn't want to put all of our eggs in the basket at once. We didn't want to give all the money up front, which is an advance payment at one time. We noted that some grantees received the second payment before the first payment advance was fully spent. A few had not spent any money or very little of the funds. And so our recommendation for improvement, not a finding, is that we recommend that when issuing the second or additional payments, ABC consider how much of the prior advance was already spent before issuing the payment. And the idea there is not to forward too much money, which was our understanding of the idea of actually splitting the grant payments into 2 or 3 payments. Thank you.
Excuse me. My name is Davon Love. I am the director or coordinator of community outreach for the Baltimore City Children and Youth Fund. So I'm a contractor with the effort. Diane Bell McCoy, the president and CEO of Associated Black Charities, can't be here as resolve a family medical emergency. So I'll be here kind of in her place. And really the purpose of me being here is really we appreciate, the work that the auditors did. We think it's important the public understand that the intention of the Baltimore City Children and Youth Fund was to cultivate a process that was transparent, from which there's entryways for the community to participate in the nature of how the process operated. And so I just want to address a few of the things that were mentioned by the auditors, just provide greater context both for the public and you all as people presiding over the Board of Estimates. So starting with the particular finding around the inconsistent documentation that the auditor found as a result of the rationale as to why grantees that were scored lower ended up getting awards. One of the things that was the charge of the grant review team, which is a team of individuals from the community from a variety of different walks of life, it was their charge to make sure that the total portfolio was reflective of the needs, the comprehensive needs of children and youth in Baltimore City. And so there was a process by which, after the scores were made, that those scores then were weighed by a grant review team that looked at the total portfolio. And for instance, they may find that there were too many mentoring programs in the portfolio. So they may take some folks down, move some folks up, as a way to make sure the portfolio is as responsive to the needs of children and youth in Baltimore as possible. And so those were conversations had with the grant review team. The members of the grant review team was public. And so these are conversations that the team, that the Youth Fund, Baltimore City Children Youth Fund team, were willing to entertain and had conversations with folks throughout the community as to the nature of the conversations that were had during that process. One of the other things I also want to mention about this is that this is an innovation. One of the purposes of the Baltimore Children and Youth Fund is to provide the community an opportunity to participate in making decisions about where resources go that impact their lives. And so this is an innovation when you think about the larger philanthropic, human social service sector, where oftentimes the community is not seen as an asset to their community, but rather they're seen as people to be acted upon about institutions outside of their neighborhoods and communities. So this is an innovation, and again, we appreciate the auditors looking into and investigating, looking at the work that the Baltimore Children and Youth Fund does, because we hope that this sparks a larger conversation about the importance of innovation as it relates to how we do grant making in the nonprofit and in the larger philanthropic sector.
Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm Danielle Terrain, also a contractor with the Baltimore Children and Youth Fund. I came into this work from the Casey Foundation, doing a lot of work around community investment issues in Baltimore. This work that we're doing actually builds from years of piloting a number of different models around Baltimore City and learning from the strengths and weaknesses of those processes. When the auditors say that there was inconsistent documentation or that there was no documentation, is just simply not accurate. The note-taking approach and the documentation approach was actually very intentional and actually structured with transparency in mind, the possibility of an audit in mind, and also the hope that all of the notes from all of the deliberations by the reviewers, that we would actually be able to share a lot of the discussions that took place between reviewers to make these decisions. As Davon shared, the first step in actually scoring the proposals was using a system. The system was called Submittable. So as you guys know, we had an intergenerational panel, a lot of different folks with different levels of comfort with technology, but we had to actually find a system that actually suited the majority of those reviewers. The first step in review was for them to actually work with their either paper applications or those electronic applications and score via the Submittable system. So every reviewer for every application actually scored in that system. The second step in the process was for the reviewers to actually be broken down by level. So as you guys know, the grants were broken into level 1, level 2, level 3. Each of the reviewers actually had an opportunity to fully discuss those applications, but in that structure. So when the auditors are saying that there wasn't documentation, there's a difference in philosophy or perspective in terms of what constitutes actual documentation. The truth is that there are detailed notes on every discussion that took place. That was all of our roles. So we actually had upwards of 5 to 10 people in the room simply for the purpose of note-taking and also to help to support the grant reviewers in this process. That was separate and apart from the folks who were actually charged with facilitation, and that was separate and apart from the part of the team that actually managed the system. This was all because we wanted to make sure that there was no possibility of undue bias in terms of different parts of the process, and that there were very clear notes. So what we said to the auditors was that the notes are there, but you actually have to look at the notes in addition to what is actually in the Submittable system to understand the full process. We are trying to educate the auditors as well as the general public on the importance of a participatory approach to grant making. This means that you cannot solely rely on what you're going to actually see in a technical system. This is the limitation of the philanthropic sector at current. So this was an intentional point of deviation from the norm in the sector. And so I just want to make sure that that is clear, because a part of what this is about systems change, and it's about educating everyone on why these points of process are intentionally different. And I think we're doing the public a disservice when we actually lead them to believe that there was no documentation for a process that is this important for Baltimore.
Thank you. And Mr. Rain, to that point, with the auditor, when you guys try to give that information, is this a systems issue that Submittable won't allow those notes to be included, or how does that work?
Exactly. So Submittable was never intended to be the system that we use to actually document notes from the deliberations. It was never, that was not a part of the design. So it was always intended that Submittable would only serve as a system that we would use for the first phase of scoring, but that we would actually give reviewers the opportunity to deliberate and actually have those notes reflect the more nuanced discussions, right? So the point of the auditors was that they wanted to see all of those notes actually in the Submittable system. And our response was, how? That was not what the system was actually, that's not what it's built to do, that's not what it's intended to do, and we don't want to set the precedent for future teams that is what they should do. If we actually have detailed notes on every discussion, and those are clearly filed, and in a way where folks can actually track the discussion, we believe that is sufficient. And that's what we actually turned over to the auditors, but that was not considered in developing the findings that you guys in the public are actually reading and relying on.
Mr. Auditor, can you explain why, just knowing that this program was created basically to give organizations who never get any help, never get any assistance, and to reach those people, that why that stuff wouldn't be included?
Right, so I want to clarify. So number one, we did not find any bias in the awarding selection. We looked at the selection process from a technical perspective, and we were informed, and we understood and we agreed that there was multi-phases in the selection process. There was a scoring process, and then there was an evaluation process. So the way an audit works is we get that, we see the process, and then once the scoring process was very clear, the grantees that were awarded to that, they were the highest ranked, they were selected, that made sense. We moved on to the second tier, of which the grantees did not score the highest, and other factors were taken into consideration. There were 19 such grantees. ABC and the program had prepared a document to explain why those grantees were selected above. And we saw that there was actually a process of deliberation to go ahead and select those. However, as we were going through the document to support it, 7 of the 19 that fell into the category, we couldn't find anything that was supporting and saying this is why we moved them up. And that is the basis of our finding. So it's not a finding of they don't have a process. It's not a finding of they have bias. It's a finding that their documentation wasn't complete. So of the 80-something grantees, we see 7 where there's this wiggle room of okay, why did we select them? And it needs to be tightened up because this is an important program. And we presented those 7, presented the 19 to ABC saying, how do we come up with these? And we were given a summary of the ones that were selected and the rationale behind them. We said, what about these 7? And we weren't provided additional notes saying, here, these were in a separate file and we didn't have these. So if they exist, they were not provided to the auditors, and we believe that we had ample time to get those. And that's really the basis of our report, saying that for a program that is funded through grants, that full documentation consistent across the board is important, and we didn't see that here.
Mr. President, can I address one additional point? So this is about centering equity in our choice of process, in our choice of facilitating this type of effort. Holding equity, even in how we structure systems, is actually a really important part of what this is all about. So the choice of not limiting the reviewers to one form of documentation was actually really important because, again, we have folks with different levels of comfort with these different systems. So the use of the submittable system was first step, but we also said to the reviewers, take your notes in whatever way that you need to and bring those notes into those deliberations, because we will actually do the work of capturing those dialogues. That's important. So that's one. So accounting for the different ways that folks process, come into into the different levels of comfort with process is actually a part of what it means to actually center equity in your choice of facilitation. So that's one. The other thing that we actually think is really important for the public to understand about the way that this the first year pilot was conducted was that, again, centering equity in the decision-making process meant that first step was to actually go with the raw scores. The raw scores were actually, a detailed analysis of those scores was actually done. They were distributed across Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. All of the applicants who actually appeared in Tier 1 were automatically accepted. Tier 2 and Tier 3 were subject to additional discussion, because this is also recognizing that what happens in traditional process is that if you don't have a beautiful kind of technical proposal, if you don't have the resources to actually hire a grant writer, usually just based off of your raw scores, you're X'd out of the process. So what we actually said to the reviewers is actually have a discussion about that, and also have a discussion about the overall distribution of this portfolio. When you take a step back and look at the Tier 1 scores and who's awarded there, what's missing, and then for the reviewers, make sure that you're actually centering your charge of making sure there's equitable distribution of opportunity across the city. So what neighborhoods are absent? What youth populations are absent? What types of services are underrepresented? And then come back to us with a detailed response and justification for what's missing. Now, this is not to say that we got it all right? Because a part of the challenge of the first year was the volume. The decision to deploy $10.8 million was not of ours, but we understood the importance of doing that, and that actually placed more stress on the process. But what the reviewers did very intentionally, I want to lift this up because they did a lot of work, was to actually think very carefully about who's missing. And so that's actually how they made those additional recommendations. So ABC did not work outside of any authorization by that grant review team. So any choices that were made by the team to actually move organizations up that were serving those underrepresented populations, that was actually the subject of those reviewers. And those notes do exist, and those notes were turned into the auditors.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank the auditor for the job that he performed, but I do know that one of the reasons why I asked for an audit was to make sure that there was no political influence, and I didn't hear that.
Right.
And this is a new process, and I think that your team and the auditors need to get together so they can learn your process and know exactly what is required, because I don't think they knew that. This is a program that just started, and I know we started late getting money out the door, so there couldn't be really any site visits because the people was just receiving the funds. I didn't hear that. So I just want to say that I think that is moving in the right direction as the council intended for it to move, and I just say keep up the good work. I think we all need to get together and so they can learn your processes, because this is a new thing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Madam Comptroller?
Yeah, the auditor said that what created the finding was that there were 7 items that were not provided to the auditors. Were those 7 items presented to the auditors?
Yes, because at minimum, all applications went through a baseline of scoring, right? So what I'm trying to say is, the auditor is saying that there were items that were not presented. The question is, were those items presented? Yes. Yes, because they're in the scores are in the submittable system, and there are also notes from the deliberations. However, if they did not fully review the notes from the deliberations, they would not have been able to find that justification.
Can you respond to that, Josh?
Sure. So the way that our process works is we went, and the submittable system, we didn't have any issues with that. The deviation or the additional considerations after the submittal submission, that is where the finding lies. And so we found 7 grantees, and we were provided a document to summarize the entire program saying why these grantees were selected. And of that, there was no notes and no documentation to say these 7 grantees were elevated and granted above higher scoring other applicants for whatever reason. Now, that's 7 of 19, so there was 12 that did have the documentation there. We presented this to ABC and said, hey, we have these 7, and ABC explained to us verbally, well, this is why they were selected, but as auditors, we need to see the documentation from that period of time to justify it, to explain it, and to give that documentation. If these 7, which were presented, the 7 are not a surprise. We told ABC who the 7 were. If there was some kind of back notes or something in another file, they were not presented to us. We did see them in the submittable system. We do know that they were ranked, and we don't have any question there. The ranking was, however, there were others ranked above them in that system, and the justification of elevating them above other high rankings, that we didn't see documentation to support that.
Is that
was
correct?
7 of 19.
So what I cannot address is the nature
I just need you to answer the question.
Well,
Did
I'm
we
just
receive?
being clear that I'm a contractor, so I can't address the conversation that took place
No,
directly
was it
between the
written
auditors and
documentation?
ABC.
Was it written documentation? He's looked.
Yes.
The auditors.
Yes.
Can you provide it to this board at our next board meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. Duly noted. Madam Deputy Comptroller.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. After the routine agenda was passed, it came to my attention there's a request for the item that was deferred, which is pages 18 to 21. That was deferred for 1 week. The submitting agency, the Department of Human Resources, has requested that this item not be deferred because of the time-sensitive nature of this item. For the board to consider that item, it will be necessary for it to be recalled and that there be a motion not to defer it and that it be voted on as part of the non-routine agenda.
Thank you.
Sure.
Make a motion to recall this item.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The president votes no. All those in favor of approving this item say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. President votes nay. Thank you. As there's no more business before the board, we will recess until bid opening at 12 noon. The board will also be at recess August 14, 2019. We will reconvene August 21st. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The board is now in session for the receiving and opening of bids. I have the following addenda to note. Procurement B50005755, heavy-duty manual transportation and differentials, and rebuilt heavy-duty manuals, transportation, and differentials. Please change the bid due date from August 14th, 2019 to August 21st, 2019. Let me just read that again. Procurement B50005755, heavy-duty manual transmission and differentials, and rebuilt heavy-duty manual transmissions and differentials. Please change the bid due date from August 14th, 2019 to August 21st, 2019. The next item, Bureau of Procurement 50005834, polyethylene liners. Please change the bid due date from August 14th, 2019 to August 21st, 2019. Also, Bureau of Procurement B50005837, OEM parts and services for Orion buses. Please change the bid due date from August 14th, 2019 to August 21st, 2019. And lastly, Bureau of Procurement B50005840, OEM parts and service for Mack trucks. Please change the bid due date from August 14th, 2019 to August 21st, 2019. Those are the addenda.
All 4 are noted for the record.
The first bid opening is General Services, GS 17815, Northwestern Police Station, second floor restroom and roof renovations. A 2% bid guarantee is due if the bid is over $100,000. The bidder is Simpson of Maryland Incorporated. Okay. Does it have a bid on? The bid is $599,000. That's $599,000.
Does it include a bid bond? Is there a bid bond?
Page 345.
345.
300-45.
Does it have a bid bond? $345, 44, 345. With a bid bond.
Yeah.
With a bid bond.
And the amount was $599,000.
$599,000.
Okay, thank you.
The next bidder is Triunfo Builders Incorporated. Total bid is $513,000 with a bid bond. With a bid bond. Pardon me? What was the amount? $513,000. The next bidder is Boulevard Contractors Corp. Total dollar amount is $654,950. $654,950. With a bid bond.
Excuse me, all three of these will be referred to the Bureau of General Services for review.
The next item is procurement B50005846, 16-foot wide area rotary mower with a bid guarantee of 5% is required. The bidder is Turf Equipment and Supply Company, Inc., with a check. Total dollar amount is $98,154.69. $98,154.69. The next bidder is Easy Go Division of Textron, Inc., with a bid bond. Total bid price is $79,000. That's $79,000.
Okay, excuse me, both of these will be referred to the Bureau of Procurement for their review. Oops, sorry.
There being no more business before this board, we are now adjourned.